So then we get into, we'll call it a Matt Wolff pattern. And obviously Matt Wolff being really at the extreme end of the spectrum, coming from a little bit of a baseball background, he has an ability that even though his club works out and almost gets inverted, he knows how to take this position, which is very like internally rotated, and go into like this external position and kind of lays it down. So is there cause to change that? I would say no, it's very, very functional. And he knows where the club is. Freddie Couples was the same. Jim Furyk, easily regarded as one of the best money makers of all time, and certainly had an awesome career. Had a very, very similar pattern with different dynamics. So we have to appreciate some of that first and foremost. I do see less of this pattern working. So hence why we spoke about that before. One of the best female golfers I teach right now, she's a pro in India, has always had a pattern where the club gets a little outside the hands, gets a little bit more upright here. She lays this thing down and is one of the best drivers of the golf ball that I've worked with. Very similar to Rory. She hits up about 5 or 6 degrees, swings out about 8 degrees, has 100 miles an hour of club head speed, and hits these high bomb draws. I've never changed that pattern. My only goal is to have her to get the club down here in position and be able to deliver that through the golf ball. So effectively, I'm not really influencing, let's say, one of the most important areas of the swing, which is the player's ability to have the club in position with a reasonable club face and deliver that squarely into the ball, controlling curve.
Now I'm really curious about how you can deliver the club much better to the ball. Can you tell us about the transition and shallowing, the movement?
It's a very interesting topic, and there's certainly a bunch of information out there online at the moment. And let's say for whatever reason, let's say they got up here, the club maybe got a little bit crossed, but they were in still a pretty functional backswing. What might I do to kind of change the shaft pitch? Well, from a right arm, let's say wrist and even forearm rotation standpoint, what we're actually looking to do with them is, and I'll do this with the right hand first. So let's say the player did have a little bit of an internal look to the elbow where it points behind. What they're really looking to do is when the hand kind of gets around shoulder high, they're really looking to switch that and point the ball more to the sky. So they might be looking at here and then that way. So what that's doing, it's educating, if you like, where the wrist is going to some extent, and that can definitely be an opening. The forearm starting to supinate, and the right elbow starts to go a little bit more external. So that is definitely a shallowing component. Now, I've worked with students over time that just get better results when they focus on the lead arm, and some get better results when they're focusing on the trail. Some golfers just have way too much tension, especially if they're at a certain age, or tightness, I should say, in this shoulder, and they just can't externally rotate. In that particular instance, I'm trying to get them positionally as much down the line as possible, because they might just not have that capability. For some juniors and some players that have a little bit more range of motion, that can actually add a little bit more speed to it, just like a throw, just like we see with a baseball that might be here, and then the elbow kind of kicks back in. I know some coaches that will teach that to try and add a little bit more like flash speed. And to be fair, when this arm does get a little higher and back more, for someone that knows how to manage it, that can certainly create a little bit of with the elbow, the elbow coming back down in front.
So you can't hit the ball well if your hand and your elbow is coming down this way, right?
It's really tough.
It's tough.
Then we get into what would be the role of the left hand when we're doing that. And again, I have a lot of players find this gives them a really good sense of feedback of what it should be doing. So we're going palm up, so palm up to palm down.
Palm up, palm down.
Essentially, this is teaching the student to go from, even if it's a fairly neutral position, to then pronate the forearm in transition. That is a shallowing component, just like tipping it over or supinating. So they're going here and here. And the feel that would give me would be that. Would be my forearm going here and here.
Oh, nice.
Just like my right hand would be here and here.
Right.
Even though we might get a manual sense of how they're doing.
Yep.
We want to make sure that they're happening within the dynamics of the downswing.
Yep.
Yep. So my lower body, my upper body segments are moving in a way that accommodates those movements versus
just the arms and
just
hands.
the arms and hands.
Right.
Very dynamic.
Yeah.
And doesn't really, let's say, connect those movements correctly just by almost stopping and manually feeling it. We might at times give a student that sense just to get them going, but ultimately we want to try and kind of move through those positions in a more dynamic way.
Okay. That makes me curious again.
Yes.
So now, to get it really shallow on the way down, we learned how to use the arms and hands. Does my left side or right side need to do something to make it shallow on the way down?
I would say there's an absolute blend of what the lower body, upper body segments are doing, again, to help like marry these movements together. So let's say a pretty functional backswing. We're looking to move this hip some amount forward for sure. In other words, I'm not spinning back. That might move the hands out, but it can often throw the club out of position. So there is some lateral movement back to the lead side. But you'll notice here that my hips are actually moving back to square.
Yep.
So let's say from a top of swing position, if I create that movement, I actually get my hips back to square, roughly when my left arm gets parallel to the ground. It gives me a little bit of lateral, which helps my right side bend to kick in. That definitely helps the hands to lower. And again, if we have, let's say, the right forces going across the shaft, we can get that shaft to pitch back.
Yes.
So let's talk about, for the student that may want to understand, what would a shallow shaft pitch feel like? So from a setup position with my arms in front of me here, if I back hinge my right wrist, that would be one part. See the club goes off to the side there. If I rotated my forearm, my right forearm inward, that also changes it. And if I externally rotated my shoulder, now the shaft looks really, really flat there. So I'm taking this position, forward bending, rotating, and we can see what sort of look that we are in there. And this can be just a really good way, just do a little practice swing here, to hit balls from here, a little bit dynamically, so my legs are starting to move here. But we can certainly see from the behind view there the different look of the shaft, which is kind of interesting. So maybe the player that has been this way, that would be extreme.
Extreme,
the opposite of everything I explained. Wrist in extreme extension, forearm way too pronated, and the elbow in a really internal position. If we reverse the order of that, so 1, 2, 3, get into this position here. Got some forward bend, and away I go. And as long as these, let's say, angles are staying in pretty good tact, they're going to have a fairly good sense of the shaft pitch being a lot flatter at that point, which often gives them a lot more emphasis to stay lower through the shot and reduce some of this stuff that we often see around the ball. It's pretty good.
Nice. What was the 1, 2, 3 step?
So back hinge the right wrist.
This
a bit
way.
more than that. Good. We're going to rotate the arm.
This way?
Yeah, rotate it that way. And then externally rotate the shoulder in. Good. So from there, if you do a mini pivot. Good. The shaft there is probably outside the golf ball or pretty close to it. We want to pivot so the left arm gets across the chest. So that would be a really good potential halfway down position. And if you just pump the club once or twice with the lower body, Good. Can you feel that the arm kind of staying a little more across the chest? This is a good feeling for you because it tends to go out too much. And then from there, you can just let it go.
Okay. Oh, that was really down here.
Yeah. So the tricky thing with you is you probably feel like you're going to hit a big draw from there. Good. Nice. This is something I would do for someone with your pattern. I'd put the shaft there.
Yeah.
This is managing where your lead arm goes, which is just as important as the shaft.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about it as much.
Right.
Let's say there's two parts that can be steep. The arm could be in or out, and you've also got the shaft. So arm in and shaft like that's not great.
Right.
But it also say arm out and shaft like that's also not the best. Because how do you get back down to the ball?
Yep.
So there has to be some load of the left arm, and let's say ideally some drop of the shaft. You know, if there's any way we want to go into this slight pattern there. Players do it more than others, but the lead arm can help a little bit with this, and it can create a load across the chest, which then allows us to fire a bit more aggressively.
구독, 좋아요, 감사합니다.